Good morning, everyone. Welcome to a glorious Saturday, May the 2nd. At least I think that's what the day is. So it's nice to see about 50 of my friends in here. I recognize just about everybody's name. And at least virtually, our friend Ginnery the Woodpecker is outside as well, as I think Haley said, giving us a sound check. So does everything look good and sound good this morning? Are we free of technical difficulties? I just need one volunteer to let us know that. So last night was a very good night for me. It's really nice to see all the volunteer work and hard efforts going into getting the Ajahn Sudanto Pacific Hermitage Birkin Retreat off to a good start. And like I hope all of you, I was there last night watching the premiere of Ajahn Sudanto's first talk in our meditation retreat last night, and I think there was over 450 people watching it, at least at one point when I was looking at the stream and seeing what was going on, which was just incredibly uplifting. That normally we have a retreat capacity of 12, 13 people at a time, and the last couple of years we've been able to sort of organize it so that people that only can take a week off to go do a week and then someone else takes their place. So, sometimes we get 20 or a little more people joining us on the Birkin retreat. And it's such a shame because Ajahn Sudanto's experience and his teachings are so incredibly helpful. I think it's just wonderful that we have the opportunity to sort of share this more widely this year. And I had, when Ajahn's talk was kind of spot on, just a nice way to sort of launch into the subject and give a nice overview. And, it was all finished and I shut it off. I just felt a huge smile in my heart and on my face and had a beautiful night's sleep. One thought that came to my mind, just reflecting on that sense of delight, was who would have known that some of the generosity and efforts that myself and Ajahn Sona and some of the stewards at Birkin and some of you all in donating video equipment would serve us in this particular way. I think it's maybe a couple of years ago that Dantika and myself were encouraging Ajahn to consider doing more teaching online because he kind of reached a phase in his life where he really didn't want to leave the monastery very much. He had done years of traveling and teaching and leading retreats, and he was hitting a period of time where, he just didn't want to leave Birkin any more than he had to. It's the favorite environment for him, and it's the most suitable environment to kind of connect with him. And so I remember kind of bringing this up with him and saying, well, Ajahn, maybe you should explore doing more teaching online or doing videos and setting up a YouTube channel and sharing that content with people. And he was open to the idea. And just watching and listening to the talk last night, I thought, this is just so beautiful. It looks nice. It's very presentable. It sounds nice. In some ways, you can see and hear Ajahn even better than if you're sitting there in the Birkin Dhamma Hall itself. So, yeah, and I know that some of you had a hand in this. So this is your morning reflection. One, by participating in the retreat, two, by some of the group dana that happened to enable that. Let us rejoice in that. It's just a beautiful thing. By the time I woke up, which was quite early, we needed to do some setup to make sure that the first live stream of morning meditation was workable and went off without a hitch. And by the time I woke up, over 1,000 people had listened to Ajahn's Dhamma talk. And well, we don't want to be too fixated on the numbers and the stats. It's more the quality of the teaching and how useful it is to people. That's a nice indicator that at least there's interest. And my understanding was close to 500 people actually registered for this retreat. And that's also an inspiring thought, that there's that much interest in taking the time out to visit this important topic, listen to Ajahn's teachings, put them into practice. And by making a daily commitment to following the schedule as it fits into your life, you're creating the conditions to really receive these teachings, contemplate them, assess them in a way that is more profound and I think more useful than just merely listening to a podcast or reading a book. So by the way, it's a very healthy and wholesome habit to uplift the mind before one goes to sleep. No matter how tired or stressful or disastrous the day has been, you don't want to go to sleep angry, and you don't want to go to sleep depressed or frustrated. And some sort of positive reflection. We've talked before about contentment and gratitude. That can be a very nice short reflection to do before one goes to sleep. Also a little loving kindness and compassion, equanimity, kind of settle the emotions and establish a good emotional tone before one sets the intention to go off to sleep. And then also very, very useful is to reflect on what it is that tomorrow may bring. What is it that you want to devote yourself to, and to set that attention? Like in the suttas, the Buddha talks about going to sleep with the thought of arising and the thought of returning to engaging with one's spiritual practice. And those are two healthy habits that I've found kind of useful. And so I just share those out. We're going to keep these morning coffee times right now restricted to about 8:30, so that there's plenty of time for people to return to the rest of their life and their morning practice, if they have the whole morning open for practice, or whatever chores or responsibilities you need to attend to. So, and then also I need to be working with the monks here, doing some of the same. So in terms of Ajahn's talk last night, I thought it was just spot on. His effort to make the distinction between Samma Sati, mindfulness in the Buddhist tradition, and some of the more popular understandings of mindfulness, especially some of the more popular ways people might understand that even in Buddhist circles, is that mindfulness is choiceless awareness, or merely just awareness. And so it was nice to hear Ajahn frame the retreat around the Buddhist concept of mindfulness, and the function and the role that has in the path of practice. So, and I think it was last year, it's hard to remember the year sometimes, but last year the retreat that we did was on right effort. And those talks are up on Ajahn podcast and on his YouTube site. And so this was the theme that we settled on because it follows on very nicely from that thorough teaching that he gave last year on right effort. And as he said in his talk last night, this is the way that we operationalize right effort in the path. So I thought that was very nice. And then the reminder of this image of the sentry. There's the whole role of, sometimes when we talk about mindfulness, the Pali term sati is what we're referring to, but a more full reference really is to sati sampajanya. And the sampajanya is introducing a bit more of that element of wisdom and discrimination that is called for in Buddhist mindfulness, or sammasati. So evoking this image of the sentry is very good. And Ajahn went into that in a way that's, I think, very... imagery speaks to us. Stories speak to us. It's very much the way we think and we understand, and also how we share information. So like to have that image of the sentry as a reminder of what we're going to be doing and how it is that we should think about this act of cultivating sammasati is very useful. And I like how Ajahn evoked that and then tied that to our intention to be cultivating sammasati in our practice and over this retreat period. So, and in particular, like tying it to our relationship to mindfulness of the body. And he didn't say this explicitly last night, but in the Satipatthana Sutta and in the teachings on how to practice mindfulness of the body is the practice of anapanasati. So this is one of the means, this is one of the ways that we engage right effort and cultivate right mindfulness, is through attending to the breath, which is a very core, central aspect of body awareness. And this image of the sentry is a classical one, straight out of the suttas, and is a very great strategy for how to cultivate breath meditation. You establish attention sort of at the entrance to the body. You erect a sentry. And I love this metaphor. Like, imagine a well-trained, wise, discerning, patient, noble person who's been given the duty of standing watch over the gate. And he's not distracted. He's ever attentive, watching that which passes in, watches that which passes out, ever mindful. And even though I don't always practice mindfulness of the breath with attention to the nose, it's something I've worked with a lot, and it's a very useful sort of technique. And it was nice to be reminded of that even last night, listening to Ajahns talk. Almost immediately upon evoking it, my attention went to the tip of the nose. And as I'm listening to the talk, an awareness of the breath passing in and out was aroused just by the evoking of that image. And metaphors and images are very useful. So, well, maybe I will turn to the comments. And oh my gosh, we have almost 90 people here this morning. How wonderful. I'm not going to call everybody's name out, but I see so many friends, and I love your faces and shining icons. And if anyone has a reflection of their own or wants to share some appreciation or has a question about Ajahn's talk last night, please feel free to pop that in the chat and I'll try to address it. Maybe one thing to encourage is we don't want to get ahead of Ajahn. So there is a great deal of detail, especially in the Mahasatipatthana Sutta. And I believe the approach that Ajahn's going to be taking is a very practical one. So, this will not, based on, listening to Ajahn's teachings and knowing him, I don't expect this will be a thorough exploration of every aspect of the practice of Satipatthana. And that's for good reason. He wants to simplify it and really focus on the practical application of it. And somewhat like in this time period, but even more so in the Tea Time question and answer series, I'll try to follow the same tact. So it's quite appropriate to ask questions about the Satipatthana Sutta, but I myself like to focus on the practical application of it rather than the intellectual, maybe even more theoretical curiosities that we might have about that. So we are a practice tradition and practitioners, and we want just enough information to arouse faith and energy and mindfulness and to put it into practice so that we can get somewhere in our practice. In particular, develop the qualities of the Dhamma to overcome suffering. So anyone want to share their appreciation for the talk or impressions? I'll kind of keep an eye on the chat window here. I failed to open Skype this morning, but I will do that now. And that may be possible for people to call in questions if they want. Let's see, Steve has a question here. Have you read Ajahn Analyo's book, The Four Foundations? Would that be a good companion for this retreat? I haven't read the entire thing, but I have read large sections of it. And I would discourage reading that during the retreat. I would read that maybe after the retreat. And part of it is along the same lines of what I was just articulating. I think when you do a meditation retreat, you really want to give that time over to practice and cultivating the conditions for practice as best as possible, and then not being too greedy for reading and Dhamma teachings, and really just give your time over to Ajahn's teachings, and that should suffice. That should give you plenty to think about and be plenty to kind of nurture faith and inspiration to apply yourself to the practice. And, more is not always better. We need space. Contemplation is this very sensitive thing, like arousing the wholesome conditions. And to be in that kind of space, I find it's like, not only do the conditions need to be there, there needs to be a sense of patience and spaciousness, and even the wholesome and even Dhamma can keep the mind a little bit too stirred up or too active, too proliferative, to really find that kind of optimal space where direct insight into your mind and your experience of consciousness and how these dhammas speak to that, that can be a very fragile thing. And so you want to be, we have the schedule and we make these commitments, but one of the commitments is like to have this time feel like really quiet and spacious, so that the things that are mostly inputs into the mind are these teachings that Ajahn going to give us, as well as our attempt to mold them over in the right way, and also be creating conditions for effective practice. And some of that is serenity and just the direct application. So, but that's a very good question, Steve. And my take is leave that aside for now. Kent, Ajahn, following on Stephen's question, do you have any favorite books or commentaries that you recommend on the Satipatthana Sutta that we can study during the retreat? Nope. But I do like the writings of Bhikkhu Analayo. And as I just said, after the retreat, I think that'd be a good place to go to get some more inspiration and detail. So, and let's see, Adil. Ajahn Sona is the most lyrical bhikkhu I know. I think I agree with that. So, and indeed, he was a musician and classical guitar player before he was a monk. His mother is also a very good speaker, so it's possible there's some genetic and nurturing sort of qualities that went into the young Ajahn Sona that he got from his mother, as well as how he spent his life. And I love listening to Ajahn talks. They're so well delivered. Good morning, Phil. I found the century idea helpful last night in letting go of some of the unhelpful, worrisome thoughts. Yeah, great. Yep, I concur. It's like if you were going to have a little meditation retreat with some friends or even a nice dinner party, you want to be careful who you let in. And I remember like a number of years ago, just having this little small kind of insight. And for some reason, it seemed counterintuitive to my conditioning. But, I was just thinking about, I've always thought about the alleviation of dukkha is more like, I'm cultivating the path and I have these insights and they just transform me so that suffering doesn't arise, or certain things are uprooted, certain defilements or the roots of defilements, the asavas, are eradicated. And that is true. That is part of the model that the Buddha teaches in the suttas. But I remember just this one day sort of having the basic sort of insight of so much of the dukkha of our life is us kind of relinquishing responsibility for making wise choices. We tend to be in it's probably human nature, but also there's a cultural component there. A little bit careless, or the Buddha would say heedless, about what it is that we attend to, like what we give our attention to, what thoughts and ideas, what sights, what sounds, what smells. We're not judicious, or we're not as judicious as the Buddha would have us be. And so this idea of the century is really important. And I remember just kind of connecting with sort of like, I have a choice. And like when I catch myself generating an unskillful thought, or starting to emote in a way that I know undermines a sense of well-being and happiness, or I know is unskillful, sometimes if the heart is strong and the mind is strong enough, you can just dismiss it. You can just sort of say, no, I'm not going to go there. I know that. Like, that's anger. That's a subtle movement towards anger that may just, like, it will harm me now, but also it might start to accumulate and snowball into a more moderate or profound sort of expression of anger. And sometimes you can just dismiss it. You can just drop it. And that's akin to the century sort of saying, oh, hold up there, sir. You're not welcome. Please go away. Go somewhere else. And that's the application of right effort. And, see, Andrew, I love his Dhamma categories. Yes, we'll be getting into Dhamma categories. That's one that confounds people sometimes because there's a lot of these Dhamma categories. And Ajahn tends to focus on two, in particular, the 5 hindrances and the 7 factors of awakening. So, but we won't get ahead of him at this point. See, David Bodhi. Ah, that's Bodhi. Hi, Bodhi. Ajahn Sona's use of the century image expanded my understanding beyond the familiar breath application to include how we feed our minds, what we allow in there as well. Good comment. Jeannie, could you speak to Ajahn Sona's characterization of the third Satipatthana as emotion? Yeah, I caught that last night listening to his talk, and I think it's a very fair way to sort of talk about it. In the way that we use language, a lot of what makes up that sort of section on mindfulness of mind states really is emotion. And I think Ajahn chooses that word because, in many of his teachings, he's emphasizing sort of, what we're after here is a transformation in our emotional experience. Dukkha is chiefly a problem, like especially when we're talking about life in the here and now. Dukkha is chiefly a problem of our emotional life, negative emotions, emotional afflictions. And so, it's like, is the mind angry or not? And, even is the mind expansive or contracted? Like, that is an emotion. That is an emotional state. There's like a perception and a tone to the heart. It feels kind of contracted, narrow, small. And what's that feeling of expansive? The mind feels spacious, open. It's a pleasant, delightful, emotional sort of state. So I like that. And one of the features of Ajahn teachings is he's given, I think, a lot of thought to finding language that speaks to our culture and our time. So, he's trying to sort of, I think, connect the Dhamma. He's probably not proffering emotion as a serious translation of Chittanupassana. It is a reflective, contemplative attempt to put some language on there to really help us kind of approach it and think about it in a way maybe we haven't yet. And Ajahn spent years talking on Dhamma and thinking about Dhamma and coming up with some of this language. And it's not a technical term. It's a contemplative and reflective term, as I understand what he's doing there. How do we say this? Marilyn Lemon. There, I got it. I noted that Century does not go out and look for trouble. We need to guard against what comes, not charge out looking for things to criticize. Indeed, that is true. And he even said, he's not looking out at the horizon. He's not looking in to the city. So, like, he's there at the gate, and he's watching people come in and out. He'll fail to do his job if he's, like, distracted by something going on inside or even following the person inside. His job is to keep a watch on the gate. Like, imagine a busy gate in an ancient city, a walled city. And the sentry just needs, like, there's a lot of people passing in and out, and he needs to keep his eye on it. Think of a busy airport, and there's like some portal into another part of the airport. You need to kind of keep a steady watch on what's going on and not get distracted. So, and certainly you don't leave your post. See, I'll just run through a few more comments here. We're right up at 8:30, and there's a long list, so I'm not going to get through them all. Okay, well, I'll be good to my word and encourage everyone to come back tomorrow and enjoy your day of practice. Take care of what you need to, and then reconnect with the sense of spaciousness, preparing your heart and mind for some of the content that will follow on today. The tea time Q&A will be in the afternoon, so there's some time between now and then to take care of what you need to in your life, feed yourself, clean your house, take care of other responsibilities, and get some walking city meditation in and generate some positive emotion and that sense of spaciousness that is so critical to being able to sort of drink in the teachings and apply them to your experience of life. And then at 4 p.m., that'll be the next thing happening on the Ajahn Sona channel. We'll have the first of our tea time Q&A sessions, and that will be our Pacific Hermitage retreat group. And we might fold in a couple of questions from the public each day that are on the same theme to be read. So I can't schedule those ahead of time, I think, on the Ajahn Sona YouTube channel. So you'll just need to go to the channel and wait for the live stream to sort of appear on there, and then you can click on it and listen along. And then in the evening time, we will have our evening chanting session and meditation, and then the second of Ajahn talks will premiere at 8:15 tonight. So thank you all for joining me, and I hope you have a good day, and I hope you have some good practice. So take care.